I'm Lucy Ranger, 47 years old, and 10 years ago my entire life changed because of a single piece of mail I never received. The betrayal cut so deep, it still makes my hands shake when I think about it. But what my sister Melissa did next was even worse. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you, please let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe to join others who understand this type of pain. I met James at a coffee shop in Portland on a rainy Tuesday morning in 2005. Not one of those fancy artisan places, just a worn-down shop called Murphy's with cracked vinyl seats and a coffee maker that wheezed like an old man climbing stairs. I was rushing to grab my usual black coffee with 2 sugars when I literally crashed into him, sending his laptop bag sliding across the wet floor. His first words to me weren't angry or frustrated. He just laughed and said, "Well, that's one way to make sure I don't check my emails this morning." Something about the way his eyes crinkled at the corners, the way he helped me pick up my scattered papers without a single complaint, made me forget I was already 20 minutes late for my shift at the hospital. We spent the next 5 years building something beautiful together. James was a software engineer who worked from home, and I was pulling double shifts as a nurse at Oregon Health Sciences. Our apartment was tiny, 600 square feet with pipes that clanged at 3 a.m. and a view of the dumpsters behind the Chinese restaurant next door. But we made it ours. Sunday mornings meant pancakes with real maple syrup, not the fake stuff. Wednesday nights we'd watch old episodes of Star Trek while eating takeout from that same Chinese place, always ordering 1 extra egg roll to share. He'd leave post-it notes on my coffee mug with terrible programming jokes. I'd text him pictures of the sunrise from the hospital roof during my break. We were saving every penny for a house, keeping a jar on the kitchen counter where we'd dump our change. By our 3rd year together, that jar had $847.23. The golden period came in 2010. I'd been promoted to charge nurse, and James had just landed a contract with a major tech company. We finally bought our house, a 1940s Craftsman with original hardwood floors and a kitchen window that looked out onto a massive oak tree. I remember the day we moved in, sitting on the floor eating pizza straight from the box because we hadn't unpacked the plates yet. James pulled out a bottle of champagne he'd been hiding and said, "To all the mornings we'll wake up here. To all the dinners we'll burn in that kitchen. To knowing we made it." We clinked our coffee mugs because we couldn't find the wine glasses, and I felt this overwhelming sense of finally being exactly where I belonged. But looking back, there were signs, small things. The way my mother's voice would change when she talked about my younger sister Melissa, softer, warmer, like honey dripping off a spoon. The way family photos always seemed to capture Melissa in perfect light while I was slightly out of focus in the background. The way my father would remember every detail of Melissa's high school achievements, but couldn't recall what department I worked in at the hospital. I told myself it didn't matter. I had James. I had my career. I had built my own life. The day everything shattered started like any other. April 15, 2014. I remember because I'd just finished doing our taxes the night before, and James had made a joke about death and taxes while massaging my shoulders. The morning was unusually warm for Portland spring. I was making coffee in my favorite mug, the one with a chip on the handle from when I'd dropped it during a particularly hectic morning. The doorbell rang at 7:23 a.m. When I opened the door, my mailman Harold was standing there with a certified letter, looking uncomfortable. "Special delivery," he said. Not meeting my eyes. "Figured you'd want this right away." My parents had always lived in the same split-level house in Beaverton where Melissa and I grew up. The living room still had the same beige carpet from 1987, worn thin in a path from the kitchen to Dad's recliner. The walls were covered with photos. Melissa's dance recitals, Melissa's graduation, Melissa's engagement party. If you looked carefully, you could spot me in a few of them, usually half hidden behind someone else. The house smelled like lemon pledge and disappointment, a combination that still makes my stomach turn. I was their firstborn, the responsible one, the one who never caused trouble. While other teenagers were sneaking out to parties, I was studying for my SATs by flashlight under my covers. I babysat Melissa every day after school, helped her with homework, made her dinner when mom worked late. She was 8 years younger, and I loved her with the fierce protection only an older sister can feel. I used to braid her hair before school, making up stories about brave princesses who saved kingdoms while her fingers played with the friendship bracelet she'd made me in art class. "Lucy always takes care of everything," my mother would say to her friends, but it wasn't pride in her voice. It was expectation, like I was a particularly reliable appliance. Meanwhile, Melissa's every achievement was celebrated like a miracle. Her B+ in algebra meant ice cream for dinner. My straight A's meant a nod and keep it up. By the time I was 17, I'd already decided I wanted to be a nurse. I'd seen how the nurses at my grandmother's care facility had been the ones who really made a difference, who held her hand during the scary nights, who knew her favorite songs. I applied to 8 nursing programs. But my dream was the University of Pennsylvania. They had one of the best programs in the country, and they offered need-based aid that would make it possible for someone like me to attend. I remember checking the mail every single day that spring of my senior year, racing home from school, my backpack bouncing against my spine, hope rising in my throat. Day after day, nothing. My mother would shake her head when I asked if anything had come for me. "You're driving yourself crazy," she'd say. "Maybe it's a sign you should stay closer to home. Melissa needs you here." What I didn't know was that the letter had come. April 3, 1995. A thick envelope with the University of Pennsylvania crest in the corner. My acceptance letter. My full scholarship. My ticket to a different life. Melissa, 9 years old and already skilled in the art of manipulation our mother had inadvertently taught her, had seen it first. She knew what it meant, that I would leave, that I wouldn't be there to make her afternoon snacks and help with her book reports. So she took that envelope, my entire future wrapped in ivory paper, and threw it in the garbage can in the garage between the old paint cans and grass clippings. I found out the truth 19 years later, sitting in my parents' living room on that April morning in 2014. The certified letter heavy in my hands. It was from a law firm in Philadelphia. My high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Chen, had passed away and left me something in her will. Her children were settling her estate and found a file she'd kept, copies of acceptance letters for students she was especially proud of. Mine was there, University of Pennsylvania, full scholarship, dated April 3, 1995. "I don't understand," I said, my voice sounding strange and hollow. "This says I was accepted. This says..." I couldn't finish the sentence. My mother was sitting on the couch, her hands folded in her lap like she was in church. My father was in his recliner, staring at the TV even though it wasn't on. "Oh, that," my mother finally said, her voice casual like we were discussing the weather. "Melissa mentioned something about that years ago. She was just a child. She didn't understand what she was doing." The room tilted. "She mentioned it? When?" "Oh, I don't know. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago? She was going through a rough patch with David, her second husband, and she had a few too many glasses of wine at Thanksgiving. Started crying about how she'd ruined your life by throwing away some letter, and you never thought to tell me." My voice was rising, cracking like ice under pressure. My father finally looked at me. What would have been the point? It was ancient history. "You've done fine for yourself." Fine. I'd done fine. I'd gone to community college, then transferred to a state school, took out loans I'd just finished paying off 2 years ago, worked nights and weekends to afford textbooks, built my career one grueling shift at a time while classmates from Penn were being recruited to prestigious hospitals straight out of graduation. I'd done fine. She was 9, my mother added, as if that explained everything. You can't hold a grudge against a child. But Melissa wasn't 9 anymore. She was 36, living in a McMansion her third husband had bought, spending her days at the country club, and posting inspirational quotes on Facebook about living your truth and family is everything. She'd known for years what she'd done. She'd admitted it, drunk on expensive wine I could finally afford, but she'd always had, and my parents had kept this secret like it was nothing. Like it was just another family story, funny in hindsight. I stood up, my legs shaky. I need to go. Lucy, don't be dramatic, my mother said. It's water under the bridge. Besides, Melissa's going through another divorce. This would destroy her if it came out now. That's when I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that didn't belong in my throat. Destroy her? She destroyed my future because she didn't want to make her own snacks after school. You're being selfish, my father said, and those 3 words told me everything I needed to know about where I stood in this family. I called James from my car, sitting in my parents' driveway with the engine running. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. When he answered, his voice warm and familiar saying, "Hey baby, how'd it go?" I broke down completely, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but make these horrible gasping sounds. "Where are you?" he said, and I could hear him grabbing his keys. "I'm coming to get you." That's what love looks like. Not grand gestures or perfect words. Just someone who hears you crying and immediately moves to reach you. But my family? My family heard that their youngest daughter had sabotaged my entire future, had stolen possibilities I'd never even known existed, and their response was to protect her from consequences and call me selfish for being hurt. 3 days later, Melissa called. I was at work, just finishing rounds, when I saw her name on my phone. For a moment I considered not answering. But that lifetime of being the responsible older sister kicked in, and I picked up. "Vicky," she only called me that when she wanted something. "Mom told me you found out about the letter thing." The letter thing. Like it was a small inconvenience, like she'd borrowed my sweater without asking instead of changing the entire trajectory of my life. "I'm at work, Melissa. I know. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing." I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall in the supply closet where I'd hidden to take the call. "You knew 6 years ago. When you told Mom and Dad, you knew then." Silence. "Then, I was drunk. David had just told me about his affair. I wasn't thinking clearly. So you've known for 6 years that you destroyed my chance at my dream school, and you never thought to tell me, to apologize, to try to make it right? What was I supposed to do?" Her voice turned sharp, defensive, the way it always did when she was cornered. "Build a time machine? You have a good life now. You have James and your little house and your job. What does it matter? My little house, my job." The condescension dripped through the phone like poison. "I'm hanging up now," I said. "Wait, I need to ask you something. David's being a complete ass about the divorce settlement, and I might need a place to stay for a while, just until I get back on my feet. You have that guest room, right?" I hung up, stood there in the supply closet surrounded by boxes of gauze and bottles of saline, and laughed until it turned into crying again. She'd stolen my future, hidden it for nearly 20 years, and now wanted to move into the guest room of the house I'd scraped and saved to buy, because I couldn't go to the school that had offered me a full ride. That night, James held me while I told him everything. We sat on our back deck, the oak tree shading us from the setting sun, and I laid out 19 years of accepting less than I deserved, of being told my dreams were too big, my goals too ambitious, my hurt too dramatic. He listened without interrupting, his hand steady on my back, until I'd run out of words. "What do you want to do?" he asked, finally. "I don't know. I can't imagine going to another family dinner, pretending everything's fine. But they're my family." "No," he said, and his voice was firm. "Family doesn't do this. Family celebrates your victories and mourns your losses. Family tells you the truth, even when it's hard. These people, they're relatives. But they're not acting like family." The next few weeks were a blur of ignored calls and texts. My mother left voicemails that progressed from concerned to annoyed to angry. "You're tearing this family apart over something that happened 20 years ago," she said in one. "Melissa is devastated. She's your sister. Blood is blood." But blood had thrown away my dreams in a garbage can. Blood had known for years and stayed silent. Blood had called me selfish for daring to be hurt. The breaking point came at my cousin Rachel's wedding. I'd RSVP'd months before, and James convinced me we should still go. "Then you're not hiding," he said. "Show them you're living your life." The wedding was at a vineyard in the Willamette Valley. All fairy lights and mason jars, the kind of Pinterest-perfect event Melissa loved. We arrived just as the ceremony was starting, slipping into seats in the back row. I could see my family in the front, my parents, Melissa in a dress that was inappropriately attention-seeking for someone else's wedding, various aunts and uncles I'd grown up trying to impress. The ceremony was beautiful. Rachel looked radiant. Her vows made everyone cry. For a moment I could almost pretend things were normal. Then came the reception. James and I found our table. We'd been placed in Siberia, near the kitchen doors, while my parents and Melissa sat at a table near the dance floor. The message was clear. I was at the bar getting drinks when Aunt Linda cornered me. She was my mother's older sister, a woman who'd never met a boundary she respected. "Your mother is heartbroken," she said, without preamble. "How can you do this to her? And poor Melissa, going through such a hard time with her divorce." "Did Mom tell you what Melissa did?" I asked, genuinely curious. Linda waved her hand dismissively. "Some nonsense about a college letter. Really, Lucy, you need to learn forgiveness. Family is family." "A full scholarship to Penn," I said quietly. She threw away my acceptance letter with a full scholarship to Penn. Linda's face didn't change. "Well, everything happens for a reason. Look how well you've done anyway." That's when I saw Melissa approaching, flanked by two of our cousins like bodyguards. She was wearing her victim face, the one that had gotten her out of trouble our entire lives. "Vicky, can we talk?" "No," I said, and tried to move past her. But she grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging in. "You're embarrassing the family," she hissed. "Everyone's talking about how you're having some midlife crisis." I looked at her, really looked at her. Botox at 36, lips over-plumped, desperation masked as confidence. She'd had everything handed to her, and it still wasn't enough. She'd stolen my opportunities and squandered her own. "Let go of my arm," I said calmly. "Not until you stop this tantrum and apologize to Mom." Apologize. The word came out louder than I intended. People were starting to look. For what? For finding out you destroyed my future. For being angry that you all hid it from me. "Keep your voice down," she said, but her grip loosened. "No, you want to do this here? Let's do it. Tell everyone how you threw away my college acceptance letter because you were a selfish child. Tell them how you've known for years, and never said anything. Tell them." She slapped me. Hard enough that my head turned, hard enough that the conversations around us stopped. The crack of it echoed across the reception tent. Moment, nobody moved. Then James was there, stepping between us, his voice deadly calm. "Touch her again and we'll be pressing charges." My mother materialized out of nowhere, grabbing Melissa's arm. "Girls, please. Not here. Think of Rachel." "I'm done thinking of everyone else," I said, my cheek burning. "I've spent my entire life putting this family first, and look where it's gotten me. Melissa can do whatever she wants. Throw away my future, lie about it, physically assault me, and you'll still take her side." "You're making a scene," my father said, appearing at my mother's shoulder. "Good," I said. "Maybe it's time people knew the truth about this perfect family." We left then, James's hand steady on my back, as we walked through the silent crowd. In the car, I touched my cheek gingerly. It was already swelling. "We're filing a police report," James said. "No," I said. "I'm done giving her that much space in my life, but I'm also done pretending they're family." That was 6 years ago. I blocked their numbers, changed my emergency contacts, spent holidays with James's family or friends who'd become our chosen family. I focused on my career, eventually becoming director of nursing at a different hospital. James and I built our life together, brick by brick, surrounded by people who celebrated our successes and supported us through challenges. Then 2 months ago, I was reviewing resumes for a nursing position in my department. Good candidates were hard to find. and I was going through the stack quickly when one name made me freeze. Melissa Thompson. Her married name. The resume was a work of fiction. She'd listed herself as having worked as a healthcare coordinator at various medical spas and wellness centers. I knew the truth. She'd been a receptionist at best, usually lasting only a few months before the actual work became too much. But apparently, her latest divorce had left her needing real employment, and she'd decided to try her luck in my field. I sat there for a long moment, staring at her name. Then I noticed the personal statement she'd attached. Having grown up in a medical family, it began with my sister working as a nurse. I've always been passionate about healthcare. A medical family. My sister working as a nurse. She was using my career, the one I'd built despite her sabotage, as her qualification. I picked up my phone and called HR. I need to recuse myself from a hiring decision due to a conflict of interest, I said. The applicant is my estranged sister. Oh, said Tom from HR. Well, that's awkward. Do you want me to handle it? Please. And Tom? She doesn't meet the minimum qualifications for the position. Her resume shows no actual medical training or relevant experience. Noted. I'll send the standard rejection. I thought that was the end of it. But a week later, I got a call from reception. There's a Melissa Thompson. Here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. I felt my chest tighten. Tell her I'm unavailable. She said you'd say that. She also said to tell you it's about Mom. Every instinct told me not to go down there. But that damned responsibility gene kicked in. What if something had actually happened? She was sitting in the lobby wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's rent, looking wildly out of place among the patients and families waiting for news. When she saw me, she stood up, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Vicky, you look official. What's wrong with Mom? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Oh, nothing. I just knew you wouldn't see me otherwise. She laughed like this was clever instead of manipulative. Can we talk privately? No, you have 2 minutes. Starting now. Her face fell, the mask slipping. I applied for a job here, in your department, apparently. They rejected me without even an interview. You're not qualified. I could learn. You could teach me. We could work together, be close again. Isn't that what family does? We're not family, I said. Family doesn't sabotage each other's futures. Family doesn't hide life-changing secrets. Family doesn't show up at someone's workplace with lies to manipulate them into a conversation. That was 20 years ago, she said, her voice rising. People were starting to stare. You got your degree anyway. You have this big, important job. What more do you want? I want the life I could have had, I said. I want the connections, the opportunities, the debt-free start I earned. I want the years I spent wondering why I wasn't good enough for Penn when I was. I want parents who thought I deserved the truth. I want a sister who cared more about my future than her after-school snacks. You're so bitter, she spat. No wonder you can't forgive. You'd rather hold on to this grudge than have your family back. I'd rather have my self-respect than your version of family. Security was approaching now, drawn by the raised voices. Is there a problem here, Director Ranger? This woman is just leaving, I said. Melissa's face went red. You think you're so much better than us, but you're just as selfish as you always were. Putting your career first, abandoning your family. Mom cries about you every holiday. Good, I said, and I meant it. Maybe tears will help her understand what she's lost, though I doubt it. She's had 6 years to reach out with a real apology, to acknowledge what you did and how they enabled it. Instead, she sent you here to ambush me at work. I came on my own. Melissa protested as security gently but firmly guided her toward the door. I thought maybe you'd grown up enough to move past this. I watched her go, feeling nothing but relief. That evening, I told James about the encounter over dinner. We'd moved to a bigger house by then, a beautiful Lucin we'd restored together. The kitchen table was solid oak, bought from an estate sale and refinished with our own hands. Real things, built with real work, not handed to us by parents who played favorites. Are you okay? He asked. You know what? I am. For years, I wondered if I was overreacting. If I should just forgive and forget like they wanted. But seeing her today, hearing her try to guilt me into giving her a job after everything, I know I made the right choice. They really think you owe them, he said, shaking his head. They think I owe them because they trained me from birth to put their needs first. Melissa's homework, Melissa's activities, Melissa's feelings. My job was to be the responsible one who never asked for anything. And when I finally stood up for myself, they couldn't handle it. 2 weeks after Melissa's ambush, I got a letter, handwritten, my mother's careful script on cream stationery. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Lucy, it began. Not dear Lucy or my daughter. Just my name, like a summons. Your sister told me about her visit. I'm appalled by your behavior. To have her escorted out by security like some common criminal? Have you no shame? She's struggling since her divorce. And instead of helping, you humiliate her. I've spent 6 years hoping you'd come to your senses. That you'd realize family is more important than some old grievance. But I see now that you've become someone I don't recognize. Cold, unforgiving, cruel. Your father has been diagnosed with diabetes. His health is failing. I thought you should know, though I doubt you care. You've made it clear that your pride matters more than your family. If you ever decide to grow up and apologize, you know where to find us. But don't wait too long. We won't be around forever, and you'll have to live with your choices. Your mother, I read it twice, then handed it to James. He read it, his jaw tightening with each line. She's unbelievable, he said. Your dad gets diagnosed with diabetes, and she uses it as emotional manipulation, and you're supposed to apologize? It's what they do, I said. Every conflict becomes my fault. Every consequence of their actions becomes my cruelty. I'm starting to think they actually believe their version of events. What do you want to do? I thought about it for a long moment. Nothing. I'm sorry Dad's sick, but he's had 6 years to reach out if he wanted a relationship. Instead, he let Mom use his diagnosis as a weapon. That tells me everything I need to know. But the letter haunted me. Not because it made me want to reconcile, but because it crystallized something I'd been struggling to understand. They genuinely thought I was the villain in this story. In their minds, Melissa throwing away my letter was a childish mistake to be forgotten. My pain was an overreaction. My boundaries were cruelty. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, who specialized in family trauma. Let me make sure I understand, she said during our 3rd session. Your sister destroyed your college acceptance at 9 years old. Your parents found out when she was 30 and hid it from you. When you discovered the truth and set boundaries, they blamed you for the family disruption. When you put it like that, it sounds insane, I said. It is insane. But it's also surprisingly common in dysfunctional families. There's always a scapegoat and a golden child. Your role was to absorb blame and fix problems. When you stopped playing that role, the whole system collapsed. So what do? You keep living your life. You surround yourself with people who see your worth. You grieve the family you should have had, and you stop trying to make them understand, because they're invested in not understanding. 6 months later, my cousin Rachel reached out. We'd been close as kids, and she'd stayed neutral during the family explosion. Can we get coffee? She asked. I have some things you should know. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Rachel looked tired, older than her 35 years. I need to tell you something about the wedding, she started. About what happened after you left. Okay? Melissa had a complete meltdown, screaming about how you'd ruined her life. How you'd turned everyone against her. Your mom had to practically drag her out. But here's the thing. A lot of the family was horrified. Not by you, by her. Really? Lucy, most of us knew something was off in your family dynamics. But that night, seeing her hit you, hearing what she'd done with the letter, it opened a lot of eyes. Uncle Robert said he'd never been so disgusted. Aunt Karen called your mom out right there, asked how she could defend Melissa after what she'd done. I had no idea, I said, genuinely shocked. Your mom's been telling everyone you're mentally unstable, that you've had a breakdown. But people who were there that night know the truth. And, Rachel hesitated. There's more. Melissa's been pulling similar stuff with other people. She borrowed money from grandma before she died and never paid it back. She's been caught in lies about her work history. The family's starting to see a pattern. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you should know you're not crazy. And because I'm organizing Thanksgiving this year, and I'd like you and James to come. Your parents won't be there. They're going to Melissa's. But the rest of us would love to see you. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd like that. That Thanksgiving was a revelation. Surrounded by cousins and aunts and uncles who'd chosen to see the truth, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years at a family gathering. Peace. Uncle Robert pulled me aside after dinner. I'm sorry we didn't speak up sooner, he said. We thought it wasn't our business. But watching your parents enable Melissa while punishing you for having boundaries, it wasn't right. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. Christmas came and went. Then New Year's. I heard through Rachel that my parents and Melissa had spent the holidays alone, their usual crowd of extended family mysteriously busy. Actions have consequences, even if it takes time. Then, last month, everything came full circle. I was at a medical conference in San Francisco, presenting on a new patient care protocol we'd implemented. It was a big deal. Hundreds of healthcare professionals, including some very impressive names in the field. I'd just finished my presentation to enthusiastic applause when I spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Mrs. Davidson, my high school AP biology teacher. She was older now, silver-haired and elegant, but her sharp eyes were exactly as I remembered. Lucy Ranger, she said, approaching with a warm smile. That was brilliant. I always knew you'd do amazing things. We chatted for a few minutes about my career, her retirement, the conference. Then she said something that stopped me cold. I ran into Mrs. Chen's daughter last year. She mentioned they'd found your Penn acceptance letter in her mother's files. I hope that brought you some closure. It did, I said carefully. Though it was hard learning the truth after all these years. Her face changed, understanding dawning. You didn't know? Oh, Lucy, I'm so sorry. We all wondered why you'd turned down Penn for community college. Mrs. Chen was devastated. She'd worked so hard on your recommendation letters. She wrote me recommendation letters? Multiple ones. She said you were the most deserving student she'd ever taught. When you didn't go, she kept asking if something had happened, if your family situation had changed. We never understood. I had to excuse myself, finding a quiet corner where I could process this information. All those teachers who'd invested in me, who'd written letters and made calls and believed in my potential. They'd spent years thinking I'd thrown it away. That night, I called Rachel. I need you to do me a favor, I said. I need you to tell the family something at the next gathering. What? Tell them about Mrs. Davidson. Tell them there were recommendation letters, multiple ones. Tell them my teachers spent years wondering why I'd turned down Penn. I want them to understand it wasn't just about me. Melissa's selfishness and my parents' cover-up affected everyone who tried to help me succeed. I'll tell them, Rachel promised. Lucy, I'm proud of you. For building the life you have despite everything. Last week, 10 years almost to the day from when I found out about the letter, I got another surprise. An email from an address I didn't recognize with the subject line. From someone who should have spoken up sooner. It was from David, Melissa's second ex-husband, the one she'd been divorcing when she drunkenly confessed about the letter. Lucy, I debated whether to send this, but recent events have convinced me you deserve to know the truth. When Melissa and I were married, she talked about you constantly, not with love or nostalgia, but with a bitter jealousy that consumed her. She hated that you'd succeeded without your parents' help. She hated that you had a stable marriage when she was on her second divorce. Most of all, she hated that throwing away your letter hadn't broken you the way she'd hoped. Yes, she admitted it wasn't an accident. She knew exactly what she was doing at 9 years old. Your mother had been talking about how you'd probably leave for college, and Melissa couldn't stand the thought, so she made sure you couldn't leave. And your parents, they knew. Maybe not right away, but long before that drunken confession, Melissa told me they'd discussed it years earlier and decided to keep it from you for the sake of family harmony. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you because I've watched Melissa destroy relationships with her lies and manipulation for years. You deserved the truth then, and you deserve confirmation now. Cutting them off was the sanest thing you could have done. I hope you found the peace that always eluded her. David? I read the email 3 times, then forwarded it to James and Dr. Rodriguez. Finally, external confirmation of what I'd suspected, but could never prove. They'd all known. They'd all chosen to protect the lie instead of me. 2 days after receiving David's email, I made a decision. I sat down at my computer and began typing. To those who need to hear this, 10 years ago, I discovered that my younger sister had thrown away my college acceptance letter when I was 17, a full scholarship to my dream school that would have changed the trajectory of my life. My parents knew about this betrayal for years and chose to hide it from me. When I finally learned the truth and set boundaries to protect myself, I was labeled the villain. I was called selfish, unforgiving, cruel. I was told that family means accepting any betrayal, forgiving any cruelty, enabling any dysfunction. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Family, real family, doesn't sabotage your dreams. Real family doesn't hide life-altering secrets. Real family doesn't demand you set yourself on fire to keep others warm. If you're reading this because someone sent it to you, if you're struggling with similar dynamics in your own family, I want you to know, you're not crazy, you're not selfish, you're not required to forgive the unforgivable. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and even for them, is to step away, to stop enabling the dysfunction, to choose your own well-being over their comfort. It's been 10 years since I learned the truth. 6 years since I cut contact. In that time, I've built a career I'm proud of, nurtured relationships that sustain me, and found peace I never knew existed. The family I lost wasn't worth the life I gained. To my cousins and extended family, who saw the truth and chose to maintain relationships with me, thank you. You showed me that blood doesn't define family, love and respect do. To those still trapped in the cycle, still being told your pain doesn't matter, your boundaries are cruel, your truth is a lie, there's another way. It's hard and painful, and some people won't understand, but on the other side is freedom. And to Melissa, if you're reading this, I succeeded not despite what you did, but because it taught me early that I couldn't count on you. That lesson, painful as it was, might have been the most valuable education I ever received. I hope someday you find the peace that comes from taking responsibility for your actions, but I won't be waiting to find out. This is the last time I'll speak publicly about this chapter of my life. I have too much living to do, too many people who deserve my energy, too much joy to create. The best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's a life well lived. To those who understand, who've walked similar paths, you're not alone, your pain is valid, your boundaries are necessary, your life matters more than their comfort. Choose yourself. It's not selfish, it's survival. Lucy Ranger, Director of Nursing, mother to none, sister to none, daughter to none, family to many. I posted it on my professional Facebook page, the one connected to my work and community involvement. Within hours, it had been shared dozens of times. Messages poured in from colleagues, acquaintances, even strangers who'd found themselves in similar situations. Thank you for putting words to what I've been feeling for years. I needed to read this today. My brother stole my inheritance, and my parents want me to let it go for family peace. Your story gave me the courage to stop attending family dinners where I'm constantly belittled. But the message that meant the most came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Chen's daughter, the one who'd sent the certified letter that started this journey. My mother kept that file for a reason. She always said you were the one who got away, the student she couldn't help reach their potential. She'd be so proud to know you made it anyway. and she'd be even prouder to know you're using your voice to help others. Thank you for sharing your truth. James found me crying over my laptop that evening. Good tears or bad tears? He asked, wrapping his arms around me. Good, I said. Definitely good. I feel like I'm finally closing this chapter and opening a new one. Yeah, one where I'm not defined by what they did to me, but by what I chose to do next. The next morning, I had 67 new emails. Most were supportive messages from people sharing their own stories. But buried among them was one that made me pause. From Mom's subject. No subject. I saw your post. So did everyone we know. I hope you're satisfied with publicly humiliating your family. Your father cried. Melissa is considering legal action for defamation. This is what you've become. Someone who airs private family business for attention. We didn't raise you to be this vindictive. You want to know the truth? Yes, we knew about the letter earlier. But we also knew you'd react exactly like this. With no forgiveness, no understanding, no compassion for a child's mistake. We protected Melissa because she needed protection. You were always so strong, so independent. We thought you'd be fine. We were wrong, not about protecting Melissa. She's fragile in ways you never understood. We were wrong about you being strong. A truly strong person forgives. A truly strong person doesn't hold grudges for decades. Your father doesn't have much time left. His diabetes has affected his heart. When he's gone, you'll have to live with the fact that you chose your pride over your family. I won't contact you again. You've made your choice. I pray someday you find the peace that forgiveness brings. Mother, I read it twice, then did something that would have been impossible even a year ago. I deleted it without responding, without crying, without feeling guilty, because I finally understood something fundamental. They would never see me as anything more than the supporting character in Melissa's story. I was the strong one who didn't need help, the responsible one who should forgive everything, the cruel one who dared to have feelings about my stolen future. In their narrative, Melissa throwing away my letter was a childish mistake. Me setting boundaries was an unforgivable sin. That's not logic. That's not love. That's dysfunction so deep, they couldn't see daylight anymore. Dr. Rodriguez had warned me this might happen. When you break free from a toxic system, the system often escalates. They'll try guilt, anger, public shaming, even legal threats. It's called an extinction burst, the desperate flailing of a dynamic that's dying. So what do? You stay the course. You remember why you set these boundaries. You focus on the life you're building, not the one they're trying to drag you back to. 2 weeks after my post, Melissa made good on her threat. I received a cease and desist letter from a lawyer demanding I remove the post and issue a public apology for defamation. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, who laughed. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, he said. And you have written proof from her ex-husband confirming everything you said. If she wants to pursue this, she'll have to prove you lied. Which means opening up the whole story to legal scrutiny. Want me to respond? Please do. His response was a masterpiece of legal precision, outlining the evidence we had, the witnesses who could testify, and the discovery process that would expose every lie Melissa had told over the years. We never heard from her lawyer again, but the real vindication came from an unexpected source. 3 months after my post, I received a call from the University of Pennsylvania Alumni Association. They'd seen my story shared by another alum and wanted to feature it in their magazine section on non-traditional paths to success. We think your story could inspire others who've faced similar obstacles, the editor explained. The fact that you succeeded despite being denied your acceptance is a testament to resilience. I'd be honored, I said. The article came out 2 months later. They'd done their research, interviewing Mrs. Chen's daughter, my former teachers, colleagues who'd worked with me over the years. The headline read, "The Letter That Never Arrived: How Lucy Ranger Built a Nursing Career Despite Family Sabotage." It was picked up by several online publications. I started getting speaking invitations from nursing schools and professional organizations. The story resonated far beyond what I'd expected. Apparently, family sabotage of educational opportunities was more common than anyone talked about. The day after the article went viral, Rachel called. "You need to know something," she said. "Your parents are telling everyone the article is full of lies. Here's the thing." Melissa contradicted them at Aunt Linda's birthday party. She'd had too much wine, and started crying about how unfair it was that you got a magazine article about what she did as a child, so she admitted it. Again, in front of 20 people, including your parents, who tried to shut her up but couldn't. It was uncomfortable. Several people walked out. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. They were destroying themselves with their lies, creating the exact family breakdown they'd blamed me for. But I also grieved for the family we could have been if they'd chosen differently. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked. "You know what? I really am. They're circus, they're monkeys. I'm just glad I'm not in the tent anymore." Last month marked exactly 10 years since that certified letter arrived. James suggested we celebrate not the pain, but the journey. We invited our chosen family colleagues who'd become friends, his family who'd embraced me as their own, Rachel and the cousins who'd chosen truth over comfort. 10 years ago, I thought my life was over, I said, raising my glass in our backyard, the oak tree now magnificent with spring growth. I thought learning about that letter would break me, and for a while it did. But breaking isn't always bad. Sometimes things need to break so they can be rebuilt stronger. To breaking and rebuilding, James toasted. To chosen family, Rachel added. To truth even when it hurts, said Tom from HR, who'd become a dear friend. To second chances you give yourself, said Dr. Rodriguez, who I'd invited to celebrate this milestone. As I looked around at these people who'd stood by me, who'd believed me, who'd shown me what family really means, I felt something I hadn't expected. Gratitude, not for what Melissa did. That would always be a scar. But for where it led me. If I'd gone to Penn, I might never have met James at that run-down coffee shop. I might never have learned to fight for myself, to set boundaries, to recognize my own worth independent of family approval. I might have spent my whole life trying to earn love that was always conditional, always just out of reach. The woman I am today, director of nursing, advocate for others facing family trauma, wife to a man who sees my worth, she was forged in the fire of that betrayal and its aftermath. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, but I can't regret the person it made me. Last week, something extraordinary happened. I was reviewing applications for our new scholarship program, something I'd started for nursing students facing financial hardship. One letter stopped me cold. "Dear Selection Committee, my name is Ashley Chen. My grandmother was a high school guidance counselor who kept files on students she believed deserved more than they got. Among those files was information about Lucy Ranger, who was denied her chance at a Penn education through family sabotage. I'm applying for this scholarship because, like Miss Ranger, I'm fighting to build a future despite family obstacles. My parents don't believe nursing is a worthy career. They've refused to help with tuition, saying I should study business or marry well instead. Reading Miss Ranger's story gave me hope. If she could become a director of nursing without her Penn scholarship, without family support, then maybe I can too. I want to be the kind of nurse who sees pain others miss, who stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves, just like Miss Ranger learned to do. Thank you for considering my application. Ashley Chen." I approved her scholarship immediately. Full ride. Because that's what we do with our pain. We transform it into purpose. We take what was meant to break us, and use it to build bridges for others. That evening I told James about Ashley's letter. "It's come full circle," I said. Mrs. Chen kept my file, which led to me learning the truth. Now her granddaughter gets the chance I was denied. "That's beautiful," he said. "Painful and beautiful." Like most true things, I agreed. I know some of you watching have your own stories of family betrayal, of dreams deferred or destroyed by people who should have protected them. I see you. Your pain is real. Your anger is justified. Your boundaries are necessary. But I also want you to know this. Their actions don't define your worth. Their limitations don't determine your potential. You can build a beautiful life from the ashes of their dysfunction. It won't be easy. You'll have days when the grief hits fresh, when you see other families celebrating together and wonder what you did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You just had the misfortune of being born into a system that required you to be less so others could be more. Here's what I've learned in these 10 years. The family that matters is the one you choose. They're the people who celebrate your successes without jealousy, who support your boundaries without judgment, who love you without conditions. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. You can move forward without absolving those who hurt you. Forgiveness, if it comes, should be for your peace, not their comfort. Their refusal to see your worth doesn't diminish it. If anything, it highlights their limitations, not yours. You were always worthy of love, support, and honesty. They were just incapable of providing it. Success is the best response. Not revenge success, not proving them wrong success, but the quiet success of building a life that brings you joy. They don't have to see it or acknowledge it for it to be real. Your story matters. Whether you share it publicly like I did or hold it private in your heart, your experience is valid. Your pain is real. Your healing is possible. Some relationships can't be repaired, and that's okay. Not every broken thing needs to be fixed. Sometimes the healthiest choice is to let go and build something new. You're not responsible for their emotions. If they're sad, angry, or hurt by your boundaries, that's theirs to process. Your job is to protect your own well-being. It's never too late to choose yourself. Whether you're 27 or 67, you deserve relationships that nourish rather than diminish you. The guilt will fade. That voice saying you're selfish, unforgiving, cruel, it gets quieter over time. Eventually, it's replaced by your own voice saying you're worthy, you're enough, you survived. Thriving is possible. Not just surviving, not just getting by, but actually thriving. Building joy, creating love, finding peace. It's all possible on the other side of letting go. I want to leave you with this. If you're standing at the crossroads, wondering whether to keep accepting the unacceptable, or to finally choose yourself, know that there's a whole community of us who've walked this path. We're proof that life exists, beautiful, meaningful life, beyond the dysfunction. You don't have to throw away your acceptance letter to deserve their love. You don't have to make yourself smaller to earn their approval. You don't have to forgive the unforgivable to be a good person. You just have to choose their comfort, or your truth, their narrative, or your life, their conditional love, or your unconditional self-worth. 10 years ago, I found out my sister threw away my future. Today, I know she actually set me free from seeking approval that would never come. Free from sacrificing my dreams for their comfort. Free to build a life where love doesn't require me to accept betrayal. If you're watching this and it resonates, please share your story in the comments, not for them to see, but for others like us to know they're not alone. Subscribe if you want to hear more about building life after family trauma. And remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the beginning of everything. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for witnessing my truth. And thank you for being part of a community that understands sometimes the best family is the one you build yourself. Until next time, this is Lucy Ranger, reminding you that your worth isn't determined by their inability to see it. You were always enough. They were always the ones who couldn't see it, and that's their loss, not yours. Choose yourself. Choose healing. Choose life. You deserve nothing less.